Okay, so let's take three. Let's try it again. Take three. How? Yep. Can you hear me? How's my
Can you hear
view?
me? Mm-hmm.
I can,
You're
but
good.
you
Can you
froze
see
last
me
time.
pretty
Like,
good?
are you in a good place? Like your signal?
I am no, it's not my signal. My best friend called me, so
Oh,
it interrupted the
so
live.
okay.
So
Can you go turn
that's what
on
happened.
Do Not Disturb? That's what I did. Okay, cool. Okay,
I just did. I just did. I just did
okay.
that so we won't have no more problems. Um, so I don't know if I mean I guess we can kind of start over because I mean you're not going to
Did I?
share. We're not
Did
sharing
I?
that too
Let me see.
because it was
I may
interrupted.
have.
Well, I'm hoping you didn't. Did you?
Yeah, I can delete it though. We can recap.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
delete it
did.
because I mean it was interrupted.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm gonna recap. I'll recap.
And action.
So good afternoon, everyone. And action, okay? And action. So good afternoon to you all. Welcome to our Facebook Live session on another lovely Sunday. So we have three topics that we're going to discuss, but there's going to be two that we elaborate a little bit more on. The first topic that we're going to discuss is Governor Gretchen Whitmer. She's a Michigan governor. We're also going to be giving some updates to the Ahmaud murder that took place. We have some more updates that we're going to elaborate on just a little bit. And then we're going to close out with Prophet Allen speaking about the church. And on a positive note, some updates, some things that has been on his spirit that
Hmm.
he's going to be speaking on. So let's go ahead and start with the governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer. So um, I do watch talk shows. I love The View. I love watching The View in particular because I stay away from actual news outlets. I
Hmm.
stay away from those. I don't watch CNN. I don't watch Fox. I
Okay.
don't watch the actual media news, but I do like watching talk shows because I do like hearing your everyday, ordinary person giving their points of view on what's
Hmm.
going on in the world, or their perspective. Because I feel like I'm actually in the room and I'm actually hearing someone else talk
Hmm.
about it, not an actual news outlet. So, so in particular, with Governor Gretchen Whitmer, she was actually on the View on Wednesday or Thursday. And please, if you all want to go ahead and
Yeah.
give us your feedback, please give us your perspective. If you're from Michigan or you currently live in Michigan, please
Hmm.
give us your perspective as well. We would love to hear it. But I just want to provide my take on what I saw on this news article that I have in front of me, and go a little bit on what Governor
Hmm.
Gretchen Whitmer said on The View. So, as some of you may know, Governor Gretchen Whitmer is a governor in Michigan. And on this article that I'm reading, it says that members of four private Facebook groups, and I guess they have access by the Detroit Metro Times, they basically encourage violence and are going against Governor Gretchen Whitmer's social distancing, which I say physical distancing orders. It has 400,000 members in this group, and I consider this a hate group. Basically, there are comments on this Facebook um, uh, this thing saying we need a good old fashioned lynch mob to storm the Capitol, drag her tyrannical ass out onto the street, and string
Wow.
her up as our forefathers would have. Yes, and I'm reading it word for word based on this private Facebook group that's speaking about Governor Whitmer. Another comment says, drag that tyrant governor out to the front lawn and fit her for a noose. This burns me to my core. This really disturbs me. Another one suggested good old fashioned bullets work better, but I like the enthusiasm. So those are some of the comments that are on this private page on Facebook, by the way. So one of the comments that she mentioned is that the governor calls this protest racist and misogynistic. And I couldn't agree more, because it's like, what is going on? The anger coming from these people, from these particular white people, because I'm not going to say all white people are like this, but from these particular white people, are that you can have your Confederate flags up. A lot of these individuals had weapons, standing right in front of the governor's quarters, where her office is, and they're protesting. So a comment she made that I totally agree with, she basically said that she is fine with protesting because all of us are ready to get back to work. All of us are ready to, but please do peaceful protests, because what's happening is that these people that were protesting were blocking healthcare workers from going to work. So there was healthcare workers, nurses, doctors, all these people that are essential personnel for Michigan that were trying to go to work, but the roads were blocked off by these individuals. So I'm just not understanding the anger here. I'm not understanding. So that's why I would like to have feedback from the folks that are from Michigan, if you're on and you're watching, or from folks that are currently residing in Michigan, because my hope and my prayer is that this is also not going on in other states. I mean, maybe this is being publicized because there were Confederate flags that were swaying. I mean,
I have a
and
question
like I
for you.
said, there were rifles
I got a
and
question
stuff.
for you
So
because,
I'm
like,
just
when we were
trying to
talking about the
understand.
topics, and then we'll get to the comment. But why is that significant? That they're protesting, because you shared some information that I didn't know about, like, how do they rank as far as the coronavirus in the states? Yes.
Yes. So I spoke to you about this, Brandon. Michigan right now is number 4 in the United States with confirmed coronavirus cases. So what Governor Whitmer is doing is saying, I have to ensure the safety of the folks that are in Michigan. And she has prolonged the order, the stay home order, to ensure that the cases are going down, actually to get flatlined. And right now it's not happening. So and I'm not sure where they're ranked with like number of people in the state, but they're number 4 as far as confirmed cases. So these angry folks are speaking from a place of hate, and I'm just not understanding that. I understand, like, a lot of people that are ready to get back to work, because there's folks that are basically have no money, and there's a lot of frustration and anger with that. But to have Confederate flags, to have weapons outside the governor's quarters, I'm trying to understand there's no connection there with that. I can't wrap my mind around that. And that just goes to show us that racism still exists, because what does Confederate flags have to do with COVID-19 and the governor trying to ensure that the people in her state are as safe as can be? Because, like she said, protest away, but please protest
Peaceful.
in a way that's peaceful. Yeah, because I'm just not understanding. So I want to read Alex's comment. He says, you shouldn't be amazed how many people that we serve with that feel the same way and have the same thoughts as those people. That's very true, because it makes me think like, shoot, do I have
Yeah.
friends that feel the same way? Like I'm not understanding,
Hmm.
or that would go to those links. I mean, to go through all of that just to make a
Hmm.
statement. I'm just not understanding the connection with that. And what hurts me even more with this is that this happened about a week and a half prior
Right.
to us finding out about Ahmad being and for me it's like was this like the ammo? So what happened in Michigan with Governor Whitmer, was that the ammo? Like what was going on, or is just coincidental how
Hmm.
it was around April 30th. um it says April 30th, hundreds of people, some heavily armed, participated in the American Patriot Rally. So there were armed protesters gathered for Operation Lansing. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but what I'm saying is that it's just unfortunate that that happened, and then
Right.
we find out about Ahmad. So all of those things seem to line up
Okay.
with as far as sequence of
You
events
know,
that took place, and I'm
what
just
I also
like,
find
what in the
interesting
world is
is
really going
Roland
on?
Martin Unfiltered. So you, in the beginning, you talked about not watching the mainstream media news. I do watch mainstream media, but I also watch a lot of independent media because I feel like I want to know what's being put out. And this is not a condemnation on you. It's just we all have our different roles or ways of going about getting information, right? Some people don't watch the news at all. They only watch and get their news from social media. My only admonishment to people is to analyze the data that they receive and use this, when it comes to what we're seeing. So Roland Martin Unfiltered um, replayed a clip from an officer in Georgia, and this woman was pulled over for speeding. And the cop literally, like his video camera's on, the mic is on, you can hear everything. The cop literally says, tells the lady, because the lady's in a panic. She's like, I've seen a lot of videos of, police officers killing people, and the lady is going off. She's panicking. Um, and he was like, wait, well, we only kill black people, so you don't have anything to worry about. Yeah, like we only kill blacks. So everything is okay and you're not black. And that was literally said on video by a police officer in Georgia. And so you can go YouTube that right now, and it's a thing. So to me, I would make the connection that maybe police officers in Georgia and in some places in the South, we know that racism hasn't gone anywhere, and not much has really changed. But for that to be the the theme of police officers in Georgia, and I'm not saying he speaks for every cop, uh, in Georgia because I don't believe every officer has that issue. But the issue and the problem is when the ones who do have that issue, where is the recourse to actually deal with these people? And the connection is that Mr. McMichael was a police officer. And the way that is this the perfect segue or not? Okay, so yeah, so
Yes, it's a good segue. It's a good
okay, so
segue.
looking
Yeah,
at
we can
that,
segue into Ahmad now.
that I
Absolutely.
feel like that is the connection that police officers in Georgia, because the last time I checked, I never heard a public outcry, a media outcry after that clip. Did you ever hear any protests about policing in Georgia? Maybe there were some local ones, but it didn't make it to the national level. But for this man to say all of that on camera and feel okay to say it with his body cam on, that should show you that I'm gonna be real today. Like I prayed about it. I'm gonna be real today. It just shows that there's two different systems
Please do.
for black people and white people. Especially when it comes to policing in America. There's two different systems when it comes to the legal system between blacks and whites. And whites,
Yeah.
what we see most often is they are given the benefit of the doubt. Even if the police officer dead wrong, and I'll say this and turn it back to you. So the updates in Ahmaud Arbery case, his attorneys, great, like I guess they're very successful attorneys, and some people are probably backing them. Have we not noticed that there is a theme in our country when like I said, our country, when police or there's a murder in this state, right? Like with under these circumstances, right? There's always like a bunch of people who rally behind supporting the person who committed the murder. Have we not seen this all over again? And so there's Facebook pages supporting the McMichaels. There's people who are like, it's justice for them. And their own attorneys, which to some extent, yes, they're doing their job, but the matter in which they feel comfortable doing their job is crazy to me. So the attorney comes out and does a press conference. He has a piece of paper in his hand, or like a few pieces of paper. He starts waving them and he starts to speak about how this is an opportunity for America to show the world that in this country, you're guilty until proven innocent. So, and it's our constitutional right, and it's the Constitution that drives our legal system. Does that not blow your mind and make you think about, okay, so what made Mr. McMichael, who was a former police officer, what made him think that it was okay to do what he did? So if you look, so he called 911, set that up. Then you sent me the text message last night, and I'm gonna turn it back over to you after these couple comments. So the text message, right? All of this was a setup. The police officers had the tape for 2 months. Just a recap. So if you didn't see last week, we talked about some of these things. So the police officers had the videotape the day the murder happened. It seems like we heard it all before. And what is the recourse for change is the question we should all be asking ourselves. And how long will we continue to promote a system that clearly doesn't work? And to me, it's a larger system. I believe in some conspiracy or free thinking. And I think this is just a way to keep racism alive. Election time is coming up. It's a way to keep racism alive because in the midst of COVID-19, surveillance efforts and governmental overreach into your personal business and private business is expanding. So this is a way to make the policing in America issue black and white, not policing in America, because white people have been gunned down in the same way, and those videos are online as well. Back to you, Andre.
Okay, and I like that. So, to kind of do a small recap on Ahmaud, as most of you all know, and please share your comments as well on this live. That as most of you all are aware, that there is a video of Ahmaud going into a house that was being built, and which caused these two, and also I also read more reports that show that the two individuals that went after Ahmaud didn't even see that happen. They didn't even see him going to this other house. So, Elder Chris Kenny said, "Oh yes, it still exists." I think he said that a while ago. I think what he was talking about was racism still existing. So yes, I do agree with that. And now in these times, for it to really be showing now, especially during a pandemic, like there's so many things going on with this that is just like, wow, like we are really starting to see racism be more bold and more boastful during this time. And so there was the video of him doing that, and then on top of that, I did send Brandon the message from the from an officer. Is Officer Rash. I need to go to that real quick, but well, I don't know if you can pull it up now because my computer is
I
acting
didn't
kind of
save it to
weird.
my computer.
But of the text, okay, it's fine. I'll pull it. It's fine. I'll pull it real quick because I want to read to you the Oh, actually, I have it here. Good. Thank the Lord. I have it right here because I'm gonna read to you. Yeah, because I want to read to you what was said by the officer. So basically, the text message exchange between. So here it is right here. I'm about to open it up. So there was a text from Officer Rash texting, and it says, "Your neighbor is Greg McMichael." So Greg McMichael is the retired law enforcement and also a retired investigator from the DA's office. He said to please call him day or night when you get action on your camera. And then they provided his number. So, basically, from my viewpoint, that shows that that person was in cahoots with
Okay.
police just months before the killing. So that kind of goes to show kind of what we discussed last week,
Yes.
where it looked like the police was in on it, or certain individuals that were in the police force were already connected at some given point, because it kind of goes back to what I said last week. It took 2 months for us, actually almost 3 months for us
Right.
to even know that this person was murdered. So this happened in February. We
Yes.
found out about this like May 1st or May 2nd. So it just goes to show. And briefly, I want to talk about, I don't know if you all know, someone, a female by the name of Brianna was murdered in Louisville, Kentucky, where I am living right now. She was shot 8 times in her home because the police was looking for someone else. And they
Is
just
she the
busted in
EMT?
and murdered and just killed her on the spot. So, she's the EMT. So I am not understanding. I understand, but I guess I'm like, let's be real here. Being that I know that racism exists, I guess I'm just mind blown about the boldness of it all now. Like, I always knew it existed. I always knew that there were white people that just could not stand black people. I've always known that. But I think what has happened for me is that me being in the military, and I'm not saying all military is not racist. I'm not saying that. But being in the military, I have a lot of white friends, a whole bunch of them. And I have not really, I've experienced racism more on the outside. And I guess the boldness of it, I've experienced it more with people that weren't in the military. Like when I go to the store or when I go to the mall, like I told you in the jewelry store, those 2 white women were just watching me like a hawk when I was just looking at watches in the jewelry store, and kept asking me every 2 seconds if I needed help. I'm thinking like, what's going on? You're almost like hovering over me. Like, what is going on? Like, I don't need help. Can I just browse? Could you not be breathing on top of me? And it wasn't a very friendly, can I help you? It was more of like, can I help you? Because in the, like, you don't, like, come on now. Like, you can't afford none of this stuff in here. So I'm just going to play my part and ask you if you need help. But so, which ties into the unfortunate things that were happening to the Michigan governor. I'm like, what is going on? Like, are we talking about putting her on a noose? Are we really talking about this on a private Facebook page? So, and yes, it was a private Facebook page, but come on now, for you to be talking about it privately and it still be reported, it's like that maybe Facebook is doing their part by identifying. Because I honestly feel that those groups need to be shut off. Facebook needs to step in and look and see what's going on, because, like you said, that's just one Facebook group I mentioned. You mentioned other Facebook groups as well. So there needs to be an end. And back to what I said last week, white people need to be holding their people accountable for what they say. They do. And when we see more white people standing up on what is right and what should be right, that's when I feel that change is really going to take place. But there's not enough, honestly, there's not enough white people holding those folks accountable, because they're going to just turn a blind eye and be like, oh,
and nobody,
well, I'm not racist, so well, yeah, you may not be, but I know that they know their white counterparts that are, but are you holding them accountable? No, you don't want to be, those people don't want to be uncomfortable.
And let's
holding
face
those
it, like
folks
in the
accountable.
system
They'll just let them say
in the
it.
world system that we live in the country that we live in, who really doesn't have to pay the cost to be authentically themselves? And for the perceptions that came before you, right? Like we have to wear, if you're
I like
melanated,
that.
if you're non-white, if you're brown, if you're black, whatever, you have to live by you have to carry yourself a certain way. And even then, because I think it was Italy or something, like Oprah went somewhere and the same thing happened to her in a store. Like she was treated like that and it made national news. So this is nothing new. Like, and even around the globe, we can see because I love to watch world news, and I like to watch Al Jazeera and BBC sometimes, and like see that these shows. It really shows you that racism. This is a good segue too. So I made a post and on my blog, and racism is sin. Okay, so I'm gonna need my white evangelical brothers and sisters to call this out for what it is and stop propping it up. You know what I'm saying? Like, stop propping up and making excuses
Mm-hmm.
for your brethren when they say racist and hateful things and spread racist and hateful policies, because it is sin. If I look at any human being and do not see them as made in the image of God, then I am a sinner, and Yahuwah has a problem with me, and I'm going to have to deal with that. Then he say, before you make an offering unto me, if you know you have an ought with your brother, leave the altar, leave the offering there, go make it right with your brother, then come back. So even God doesn't want your offering. God doesn't want your praise and your worship when you are racist.
And I mean,
You're
honestly,
right.
Brandon, it's more than those white evangelical people. It's every single
Mhm.
white person. If you are around somebody that if you see a post, yeah, if you see a post, since you on social media,
Mhm.
most people, most everybody's on social media. If you see anybody speaking badly or negatively about black and brown people, hold them accountable. Because if they're bold enough to post
Yes.
stuff like that, then you can be bold enough to stop it. Because as a lot
Yes.
of people say, being silent means that you're about it. Being silent and not saying nothing means that, oh, well, it ain't me, so whatever. Not
Yep.
saying that you are, but it's very important because the more white people that hold their white counterparts accountable for their actions, there won't be change. Now, mind you, there is an element that we have to consider that there's
Hmm.
going to be white people that
Yes.
just won't change. Unfortunately, it don't matter how much you tell. But guess what? That means you have to cut them off. If you are friends
Mhm.
with them and you know them, you may need to take them out of your life because they're
Right.
feeding that. They could be feeding that into you. They could be. You could be slowly feed. If you're still associating with folks that are racist,
Yes.
then
And
you're
and
just as
and
much the
and
problem as them.
well, I would add to that
So
too,
let's go
for my
ahead.
spiritual
Go ahead.
saints,
Go
for
ahead.
my believers out there. Hallelujah, praise the Lord. Uh, your strategy needs to come from the Most High on how you should deal with these people. Some of them, yes, you should cut off, but sometimes, like when it comes to making disciples, right? Like that to me is the best sign of community. Sometimes, like we need to wrestle these things out. And like I've said things to my white friends who are political, and I told one of them who is like basically he sort of identified with the white moderate. The white moderate is like the majority. The white moderate told Dr. Martin Luther King to wait for a better time for the Negro to be equal or to have rights. You know, they tried to discourage him from his mission and what he believed that Yahuwah put him on this earth to do. So I told that friend, and you know who he is. I told him that he was my enemy, like straight up, and we continued our friendship through it. But I think the point was made, like, don't tell me that we can't have equality, especially if what's interesting is that on that post that you talked about from these people in Michigan, uh when they said string Governor Whitmer up like our founding fathers would have. So that also goes to show me that like people have different opinions on history. And Alex in a previous comment said something about the U.S. Constitution and all men are created equal, and he said that the Constitution was referring to landowners and basically white men. And so I guess it comes into like what you personally believe about our Constitution. Whether you personally believe that it did when it says all men are created equal, do you take it as that, or do you only see white males or white people as American?
That's a good point. But well, I want to elaborate a little bit more on
Hmm.
what I mean by cut off.
Hmm.
I'm not saying to block them out of your life, but what I am going to say is this: any negative energy that you get from
Hmm.
someone, it's not good for you as an individual. I'm not going. Have I will always have empathy, and I will always be a person that says, okay, this is your viewpoint, this is my viewpoint, but at the end of the day, I cannot associate myself with someone that is refusing
Mhm.
to understand my perspective and
Agreed.
what I feel
Hmm.
with racism, and with anything in particular. Now, mind you, will I be available to them if they ever
Right.
come out of that and they want to say,
Hmm.
"Hey, Andre, I've taken some
Hmm.
time to think about."
Yeah.
Yes, I didn't say block. I meant cut off.
Yes.
Now, yeah, I do block people too now, and I'm not going to lie about it. But at the end of the day, I feel that if it's a viewpoint that someone can grow in, and if they're
Hmm.
willing to, then yes, I will be there for you. But I cannot allow someone to have that much negativity in their mind and that much hate
Agreed.
in their mind, and me still associate with them.
Yeah.
I just can't do that. I have to speak for Andre, because I can't do. There's no way that I'm going to be able to have peace within myself, still associated. Now, mind you, like I said before, if
Hmm.
they come to me and they have an eye opening, a wake up call, and say, "Wow, I really now understand," then
Yes.
yes, we can have a conversation and we can go
I
from
love it.
there.
And I agree with that. And I think I would
That's just
add
my
to it
take
that
on it.
whether you're part of organizations or whether you're part of a church or whether like time out. Read First Peter chapter 4. It talks about how it's time out for our own ways of doing things. Like it's time we can't participate. If you call yourself a believer following after Christ, you cannot be part of a local body, a local assembly. You cannot be part of a church that does not support racial reconciliation. Like, how does the gospel and racism fit? It don't. It's like oil and water. It doesn't mix. And I think for too long, when we, look at the prophetic
Mm-hmm.
time that we're in and prophecy being fulfilled in the world, whether you believe or whether you don't believe, I think the whole world knows what time it is right now. Whether you believe in God or you're an atheist, you know that we are in dire
Yeah.
times right now. And I think I agree with you 100%. My admonishment is that whatever your strategy be, that it comes from the Most High on how to approach these people. And let me give an example, because remember we
Yes.
talked last week before we had the show. I feel like, remember I called you and I was like real heavy, and I was like, having this conversation, and I was angry because I don't want
Mm-hmm.
to have to educate people. And shout out to Mr. Ross on here. But I didn't want to have to educate people on these things. But guess what? If we don't, then who will? If we don't speak out, who will? If we have something to say, and to not be willing to use our mental capacity, our God-given brain, our free mind that a lot of people don't have, to freely be authentically you, Andre. You and I have that. We have the power and the ability to be authentic. So if we, who are free from this world and free from the opinions of men, can't fully educate and explain ourselves and pull people out of darkness that maybe we once were in when we couldn't authentically be ourselves, then what are we doing?
And that's a perfect segue into the churches. So go ahead and talk about the churches, because I know you wanted to elaborate
Okay,
more on
before we go there,
what's
can
been
you
going
check
on
out,
with the
see if we got
churches.
any comments that thanks, Rose.
Oh my goodness. I've been seeing
See,
all time. I didn't
come
even
on,
see all
moderator.
these. I'm behind. I'm thinking they didn't even come through. Right, right. I need to get it together. My sister Laquita is on. Hey, Laquita. It says, so sad. I can't believe that young lady lost her life by those cops. They need to be held accountable. Enough is enough. Hold them in
Yes.
office from the Senate and House, and the House too. Um, my friend Will is on. Hey, Will. Andre Brooks is very truthful and honest person that I respect and care about so
And
much.
what's up to Kent Smith?
And Rob
Kent
said,
Smith.
well said, Brandon. Hey, Will. And I see Lewis. Lewis is on. Hey, Lewis. So the comments weren't coming in. I had to scroll, so forgive me on that. I know what to do
Hmm.
now to make sure I'm seeing all the updates
And
to the
shout out to Kent
comments.
Smith. Kent Smith is
Um,
watching too.
and then
So welcome. Okay, so churches. So there are some churches who are doing
churches, yes.
some great things and are being involved in the community. But there's a piece of I feel like you don't get a gold star for that. You know, like that is what the church, what most people, this is my personal belief. What most people believe that the government should do is what the church's mission is, to take care of the poor. Christ told us that take care of the poor, for they'll always be with you. You know, and so I had this idea that like when it comes to church, the church should be out in the community. And I was going to highlight churches on here that are doing the right thing. But then I felt like you don't get a gold star for doing what you're supposed to be doing in the first place. And I think, you know, I want to speak to the believer and they'll understand what I'm saying. Like pastors have been preaching for a long time, like Yahuwah's doing a new thing. God is doing a new thing. He's going to revive the land. He's going to do all this stuff. But like then when it comes time, the church won't let him. How many churches have you seen trying to go against the governor?
Mm-hmm.
You know, when the scriptures does say obey the laws of the land, you know, but my question from the beginning of it is why is the church waiting on the governor to decide what they're going to do in the first place? You have access to the most high, the one who knows all, in us
Mm-hmm.
all, omnipotent, omniscient. We should be seeking the strategy in whatever we do. If you are a believer in the most high, Yahuwah Elohim, God, Jesus Christ, right? Like whatever you do in your life, whether it be a job, move into a place when you retire from a job, like when we get out the army, you know, whatever we decide, we should seek the one who knows all because he knows what's coming down the line. And I want to take that and transition to what I know is going to happen. And I pray that people receive this and that they don't receive this in fear, but Yahusha told us all these things in the last days. He told us how bad it was going to be. But I just want to share a couple things. Like, look at the unemployment rate right
Mm-hmm.
now. Like COVID. Hey, Hector.
It's terrible. Hey, Hector. I see you, Hector. Najelli's watching
So when
with
we look
me.
at like
Oh,
the
hey, Najelli.
unemployment rate, right? It's very high. Like I ain't even gonna shout out the number because it doesn't. No, I don't like numbers in relation to human lives because when I think about the unemployment rate, like all I'm thinking about is there's definitely a famine coming. So if you pay attention to what's going on, you will not be afraid, and you will put your trust in the Most High. Because if He rained down manna from heaven to feed the children of Israel in the wilderness, if He fed the prophet by a raven, then He surely will take care of us. Um, but there are some dire times coming. It's only going to get worse. COVID-19 is just like a mask. COVID-19 is like the storm before the storm, but the fallout because of COVID-19 is going to be way worse than COVID-19 itself. And did not we hear the president say um, they don't want the cure to be worse than the disease? Well, if we switch that around a little bit and we look at it, the fallout from the disease is going to be worse. Like they're already calling for the second and third waves to be a lot worse than it is now. And so yeah. So if
Mm-hmm.
we're
I was
not
just getting
paying
ready to say
attention
that.
and we're trying to
Mm-hmm.
go church people, if we're so enamored with going to a social club every Sunday and not seeking the most high for our strategy, then how are we gonna make it anyway? If you can't get a prayer through and you got to get to your church just to go pray and to have worship, if you can't turn your bedroom or your sanctuary, your living room into a sanctuary, then do you really know God? Like it's time out for foolishness because we are in the last days. This is a global pandemic. This is a plague. This is a message for the believer and for the world to know that Yahuwah is God. And He's showing us. And all of this is in the book of Revelation. I'm not trying to be some deep person who's just like calling for the end of the world. No, this is not the end of the world, but it is the end of the world as we have known it. So in the topics, I said the new normal and the church.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the new normal is not going to be like the old one. The new normal is going to be like things are now, where you are the priest of your household. So if you decide to go out and do whatever you're going to do, then and you didn't get that strategy from the Most High, because we talked about this on the last live, and what we talked about was the church that there. I do believe there's an anointing of protection for churches who are out in the community. You know what I'm saying? Like I do, and if those people, I don't believe those people
Yes.
would get COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
And if they did, then we know that this sounds crazy, but the gospel sounds crazy to those who are not spiritually minded. But to live is Christ and to die is gain. So if we was out and we were helping people and we was helping the community and we got COVID-19 and died, we get to go be with Christ. We get to leave all of this behind.
Hmm. And I and I also want to add though that a
Hmm.
lot of people have been saying it, and I'm
Yeah.
going to repeat this again.
Yes.
God lives within us. We are our own temple. So with that being said, a lot of these churches are not emphasizing that. You have and you
Yes.
talking about pastors, well-known
Yeah.
because let's go to the well-known ones.
Right.
TD Jakes
Hmm.
has not said a word. Where's TD Jakes at? What's he doing? He's one of those.
Yeah.
He's a televised
Yeah.
bishop. So where is he at? What is he telling the people? But you have people like us saying that, but
Yes.
you would expect to hear from him. So
Hmm.
for
Yeah.
me, I've always had my relationship with God intact. Me going to a church. Yes,
Hmm.
it's good to
Hmm.
fellowship with other believers, absolutely. But I have not
Yes.
forgotten that I can
Yes.
also have my own personal relationship with God myself,
That
and
is.
that's the key. That is the key. I see Hector saying amen. Hey, Jerry White, I see you. Lewis says, say that again, brother. So, I mean, it's true. I mean, and it's frustrating because, like you said, governors are
Right.
way more vocal, and we're not hearing
Yeah.
anything from the church. And you would
That we would be
expect
out
to.
front,
You would
right?
expect
That
to
the
hear the
believers would
churches.
be out front, the pastors would be out front, and that they would also be on the panel with the governors
With them,
as a
with
community
them,
advisor and as
exactly.
a
But we don't
representative
see
of the
it.
people. Right? Like you would think like that this would be, but it's not. And I feel like on a positive note, the real church, which is the people, which is what you're saying, that we're our own temple, and the real church, which is the people, is going to emerge from this. And you are absolutely right. We're assembling together right now. We're coming together in the name of glory, in the name of our master and savior, and trying to edify and educate the world and talk about these subjects that should be the central focus of the church. And I think,
Yep, and Hector says
right.
churches started as home churches. Church isn't a building. Today I heard Max Lucado preach
See,
exactly what you're
thank
speaking
you.
of.
Yeah, and
Boom, look at that confirmation right
Max
there. Look.
Lucado is
So
a
that's
well-known
good. Thank you,
author. I
Hector.
mean,
It's
he's very,
true.
very well-known
Yeah.
person. So that is something. So thank you for that confirmation, because yes, we do know that there's somebody who is, you know, established in ministry and he's preaching it. Now we need more.
And I mean, but I also want to
Mhm.
commend, and maybe you can elaborate more on this, Brandon, but I want to go ahead and
Yes.
shout out all the pastors who
Hmm.
are awake and are knowing what's going on, for those ones
Yeah.
that have created a church service through Zoom or
Yeah.
any of those media platforms to still preach, because there's a lot of churches out there,
Hmm.
y'all, that are not doing anything. They're just closed, and the pastors ain't said nothing.
Right.
Some of the pastors haven't reached out to their congregation at all.
Yes.
So there's a lot of churches just like on pause.
Right.
Uh, why are you on pause? Why are these churches not? Why aren't the people in the
Hmm.
church, the ministers and all that, not saying anything? Like, what is going on? Like, so it just, well, we can discuss that another time about false prophets, folks
Right.
that weren't really
So,
legit from the first place. So,
yeah.
I mean, that's a whole nother conversation for another time. But I want to read a couple of these comments. Rob says, "Amen. The people are the
Hmm.
church. Stay
Yeah.
home and grow your connection with God." See, that's what I said. Come back after the virus and give testimonies on how your walk is now closer.
Hallelujah.
Church is. Uh, See, start
Yes.
building, and then Lewis said, start building your war room. And then Jerry White says, Amen, amen.
Right.
Jesus taught the masses
Yes.
without a building or a temple.
Yes.
Exactly. I mean, but like I said, but it goes back to what I said though. The pastors and bishops out there that are still trying to hold some kind of service. So a lot of those folks that maybe live alone, that don't have, because like
Yeah.
right now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm in isolation by myself. I don't have a husband. I don't
Hmm.
have a partner. I don't have a roommate. I don't have none of that. It's just me in my house. It's just
Yes.
me here. But guess what, you all? I'm good. Hi, Minner.
Yeah.
Is Min
Get it
Christopher?
together.
Minister Christopher. Sorry. I said men, Christopher.
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I live alone. I live alone. So as you all can tell, I'm doing pretty good.
Right.
I'm because guess
Yes.
what? I have my relationship with God and I'm
Yes.
good. So that's the point. Like I'm good and
Mm-hmm.
I'm my own temple and I'm fine. So
Yeah.
but I still want to shout out those pastors out there. There's a lot that are having
Mm-hmm.
those Zoom meeting, the Zoom church, and whatever other media
Yes.
platforms to still reach out to the congregation that is not physically able to be there. Because although there are churches that
Mm-hmm.
aren't doing anything, which shame on you, I do want to
Amen to that.
commend the ones that are actually
Yes.
still reaching out because
Yes.
it means a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It means a lot to
Feel
people.
good.
So
Mm-hmm.
y'all have given some good feedback on here. We have a few more minutes we can talk about. We have about 5 more minutes to talk about some more stuff. Anything, any other extra random thing you want to
Um,
discuss, or you want to close out with anything, or what do you want? And please, you
yeah.
all reach out, say, give us comment more.
Can you read what
Let
can
us
you read
know
what
what you
Jerry White
think
said?
of about topics. Jerry White says false pastors are among us. See, you can get
Agreed.
pastorship over the internet.
I have something I would like
That is
people
very
to ponder on this
true. That
week
is very
and maybe
true.
study it out. But I think the major difference is this. And because I was watching Frontier Alliance International. It's a ministry that I just found, and I just been trying to. Hey,
Hey,
Elisa, I just been
Lisa.
trying to think
That's
about
my
like
girl.
um they are basically like missionaries, and they are going to Iran. They go into countries and preach the message of Jesus Christ. And so I just like I'm not shouting out this ministry because I don't know everything they believe, but what it did show me though is that there's a difference between creating church members and disciples based on their missionary work site. So people in the West, and this is how they described it. People, they don't know what it's like to plant churches over here. So Andre, we want to start a church, we just go plant the church. And then we get members coming in. But over there, they in Iran, they don't know that concept. So immediately from day one, when the person is introduced to Christ, they start on the way to becoming a disciple and keeping the commandments. That is the major difference when we look at our churches and the churches in
Mm-hmm.
America. And yes, I do believe there are some doing it right, but the majority I believe are doing it wrong. The ones that I've been to in the 30 something years of my
They're
life,
doing it
or
right.
since I came in contact with the Holy Spirit and was able to see things, that is the difference. Are you a church member or are you a disciple? Because it hit different. You know, hey, I'm kidding. It hit,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And so Jerry White, I like it. I like it. Jerry White says, "Amen." Shout out to my mom, Pastor
Hmm.
Mary Square, keeping the flock going. Lewis gave a really great point that this country was built on "In God We Trust." Says it right on our currency. Yet you
Yeah.
never hear anyone saying pray or turn to
Hmm.
God.
Yeah.
That's deep. That's deep. And I love that perspective, Lewis, because it's and shout out
Hmm.
to Jerry's mama. We're gonna shout out to Jerry's mama, Pastor Mary Square. Okay. But yeah, it's really crazy. It's crazy. What it's well, not
Hmm.
crazy, but it's very interesting what I'm seeing. Especially with the church because and that's a whole nother topic that we can discuss when I'm ready, but about my
Yeah.
sexuality and how my sexuality and how I've been judged and
Hmm.
um, growing up in the church.
But you
That's
still have a
something that
relationship
I'm
with the
not ready
Most
to
High.
discuss yet, but I definitely it'll come a time.
Hallelujah.
But I have a relationship with the Most High though, so boom. And Rob says anyone can attend church and
Mm.
be members. Discipleship is the only
See?
membership.
Yes.
Come on, Rob. You better say that. Beautiful. That I
Hmm.
listen. Like I love it. We can close out on that. So you all, thank you all for tuning in to our Facebook Live. We will be having a what we call
Hmm.
we haven't made a name for it yet, an after party. Facebook created a I don't know if you all seen it. but it's where you can create a room and anyone can join in. So you can go in, I believe you can go in as just audio and not see your face, but we'll of course have our faces showing. And to kind of elaborate more personal on what we discussed today, from Governor Whitmer to the updates on Ahmaud's case, and the murder of Ahmaud, and talking about the churches. So if you want to join us in the after party, we're going to have a room created. Brandon's going to create a room. We're
Mm-hmm.
going to just be in there and just have fellowship and talk on any other topics you want to discuss.
Mm-hmm.
Let us see your pretty and handsome faces if you want to, and let's just have a
Yeah.
continued dialogue on what we're
No, I
discussing
see y'all
online.
over there.
And Brandon, do you have anything?
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you all next Sunday.